The first voice cut through the sea breeze like a blade. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the gangway." 3 seconds, just that line, and the world of the USS Resolute shifted. Jonah Jack Ridley stopped mid-stride, one hand resting on the rail, his weathered eyes locked on the ship's gray flank gleaming under the morning sun. 84 years behind those eyes, and somewhere inside them the reflection of a life few would ever believe. Lieutenant Elena Vasquez approached, uniform razor-creased, every syllable polished by duty. "This area is for authorized personnel only." Her tone wasn't cruel, just unyielding. Around them, families gathered for the destroyer's commissioning. Flags rippled, children waved miniature ones. And yet, all eyes began to shift toward the old man standing too close to a warship he once could have commanded. Jack blinked, pulling a folded letter from his jacket. The paper was soft, from months of checking and rechecking, a personal invitation embossed with the seal of the Secretary of the Navy. He held it out carefully, like it might crumble if handled wrong. Vasquez barely glanced at it. "I'm sorry. Sir, that's a ceremonial notice, not an access credential. You'll need to move to the public area." The crowd's murmur thickened. Phones lifted. Some smirked, others pitied. It wasn't the noise that cut Jack, it was the tone. The kind soldiers used when they forgot who they served. A gust rolled across the pier, tugging at his faded windbreaker. On its chest, a small patch caught the light, a blue circle crossed by a silver trident piercing a storm cloud. Frayed, sun-bleached, forgotten except by those who once wore it. Vasquez tilted her head. "And what's that supposed to be? A souvenir?" She tapped the patch with a gloved finger. That single touch opened a door he'd kept locked for 74 years. A flash salt spray. Diesel smoke. The metallic sting of fear. 12 men in rubber rafts cutting through black water. Searchlights sweeping. The hiss of a DSHK heavy gun from the cliffs. He blinked it away. Steady again. Just something from a long time ago. Down the pier. Chief Marcus Hale watched the scene, his gut twisting. He didn't recognize the patch, but he recognized that look. A calm forged in places that never left you. He pulled out his phone. "Bridge. This is Chief Hale," he said quietly. "You'd better get the Admiral down here. Now, on the bridge of the USS Resolute." The morning air hummed with quiet precision orders, crisp. Radar screens glowing like stars. Rear Admiral Miriam Hargrove leaned over the navigation table, a mug of black coffee cooling beside a stack of commissioning schedules. It was supposed to be a flawless day until her flag aide approached. Throat tight. "Ma'am, Chief Hale just called from the pier. Says there's an incident at the gangway." Hargrove didn't look up. "Security detail can handle it." The aide hesitated. "He said you'd want to handle it." Mentioned a patch silver trident through a storm cloud. The Admiral froze. For a heartbeat. The bridge went silent except for the faint hum of electronics. Her hand lowered the mug slowly to the table. "Say that again." "Silver trident." "Ma'am, blue background, old patch. Looked handmade." She straightened, years of habit giving way to instinct. "Log me into Archive Alpha." The officers around her exchanged glances. They'd never heard that code before. Hargrove typed in a string of commands, bypassing layers of digital red tape until an ancient database flickered alive. Operation Black Trident. The screen showed a scanned image of a hand-stitched insignia, a silver trident breaking through a storm exactly as described. Her jaw tightened. That unit doesn't exist. Not on paper. She turned to her XO. "Get my command staff. Captain Saren, Executive Officer Park, Command Master Chief Nolan, everyone. We're going down." No one asked why. You didn't question that tone. Moments later. The metal of the gangway shuddered beneath the synchronized march of boots. Every eye on the pier turned as the Admiral and her staff descended in formation, ribbons catching the sunlight, medals glinting like small suns. Lieutenant Vasquez's breath caught. She'd never seen a flag officer move like that, purposeful, cold, unstoppable. The Admiral didn't slow. She stopped exactly 1 pace in front of Jonah Jack Ridley, the old man in the faded windbreaker. For a long second, silence drowned the pier. Then, with crisp precision, she raised her hand in salute. "Mr. Ridley," she said, voice low but ringing with authority. "It's an honor." "Sir," gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras dropped. The young lieutenant's face drained of color as realization hit like a hammer. And at that moment, high above, on the Resolute's mast, the ship's ensign caught a sudden gust, snapping open like a battle flag. The forgotten storm had just been named again. The first image wasn't fire. It was breath-sharp, misted, desperate against the freezing dark of the Yellow Sea. The world of the present faded. And suddenly, the pier, the flags, the polished boots were gone. In their place, April, 1951, midnight. A small rubber raft carved through black water, its hull flexing under the weight of 12 men. Bare faces glistened with salt and fear. At the bow, Ensign Jonah Jack Ridley, 23, whispered into a throat mic, 30 meters to shoreline. No chatter, no light. The only illumination came from the glow of phosphorus plankton curling around each stroke of the oars. The ocean breathed heavy, and somewhere in that breath, a war waited, behind him. Petty Officer Danny Cole cradled a small charge wrapped in oilskin, a limpet mine, meant for the hull of an enemy cruiser moored beyond the breakwater. 2 such ships had been loading shells, all weak enough firepower to cripple an entire American carrier group. Jack's whisper cut through the wind. "Tide's on our side. Keep low." The raft drifted toward the monstrous silhouette of the first cruiser. A spotlight swept the harbor close enough that Jack could see the veins in the hand holding it. They froze. No one breathed. The beam passed. Jack's hand tightened on the rope. "Go!" Beneath the surface, men moved like ghosts. The water bit their skin raw as they secured each charge along the steel hull. He checked his timer, 45 seconds to plant, 45 to live. Then a sound. Not from the sea, but from the cliffs. The mechanical cough of a DSHK 12.7 millimeters heavy gun tearing through the night. "Contact," someone hissed. The shore erupted. Tracer rounds sliced across the water like molten lightning. The first raft disintegrated. The second flipped from the concussion. Jack dove, lungs burning, dragging Danny under the pier supports. He surfaced amid chaos, men shouting, water boiling with gunfire, one voice screaming for a medic that would never come. He grabbed the last raft, shoving the survivors aboard. Cut loose now. Behind them, a column of flame clawed up the sky, the first cruiser detonating. Then the second. The sea became a mirror of fire. Jack's eyes reflected it, all the mission complete. The men broken. The silence louder than any explosion. Hours later, inside the cramped steel womb of a Balau-class submarine, 4 survivors shivered under wool blankets. Their commanding officer, eyes rimmed red, placed something in Jack's hand, a small cloth patch, hand stitched in blue and silver. "No one will ever know," the CO said quietly. "No medals, no parades, but you'll remember what it cost to be dauntless." Back in the present, Jack blinked. The pier returned sunlight. The crowd, the Admiral still saluting. The echo of waves was replaced by applause, hesitant at first, then thunderous. Lieutenant Vasquez stood motionless. every fiber of her training shattered by what she'd just heard. The man she'd nearly detained wasn't a guest, he was a living relic. And yet, even as respect rippled through the ranks, Jack's gaze drifted beyond them, to the horizon as if hearing something none of them could. Far off, the Resolute's sonar pinged once, low, hollow, like memory waking from the deep. The silence after applause felt heavier than any gunfire. Lieutenant Elena Vasquez stood rigid beside the gangway, heart hammering beneath the fabric of her immaculate uniform. Her body was frozen in parade rest. But her mind was falling apart. The man she had tried to remove was a legend, the kind of ghost whispered about in history classrooms and veterans' bars, and she had called him a security risk. Rear Admiral Miriam Hargrove broke the silence first. Lieutenant Vasquez, her voice carried across the pier like the report of a rifle, front and center. The crowd parted again. Cameras raised, phones trembling. Vasquez stepped forward, every movement mechanical, her boots echoing off steel. She stopped before the Admiral, eyes locked forward. Hargrove didn't shout. She didn't need to. Her tone was surgical, calm, the kind that cut deepest. You stand on a deck named Resolute, meant to honor courage against impossible odds, and yet, when faced with living proof of it, you saw an inconvenience. The words hit harder than any reprimand. Vasquez felt each syllable burn down to bone. The Admiral's gaze softened, just slightly. You enforced the rulebook well, Lieutenant, but you forgot why the rules exist. We serve people first, the Navy second. Every officer on deck stood in breathless silence. The younger sailors, those who'd snickered earlier, stared at their shoes now, ashamed. The pier felt smaller, tighter, as if the weight of 70 years of history pressed down on all of them at once. Then Hargrove stepped closer, her voice low enough only Vasquez could hear. Report to my flag office at 800 tomorrow. You and I will talk about your future. Vasquez nodded, throat tight. Yes, ma'am. But the Admiral wasn't finished. She turned to Jack Ridley, standing quietly amidst the storm of attention. Mr. Ridley, on behalf of the United States Navy, I apologize for what's happened here today. Jack raised a trembling hand, stopping her. His smile was faint, but steady. Don't, Admiral. She was doing her job. Maybe a little too well. His gaze flicked toward Vasquez, kind but piercing. The hardest lessons are the ones that stick. The pier fell utterly silent. The only sound, the distant cry of a gull and the rhythmic slap of the tide against the hull. Hargrove saluted him once more, then turned sharply toward her staff. Dismissed the formation. As officers dispersed, Vasquez remained standing, watching the old man disappear into the crowd, swallowed by 100 grateful faces. She didn't move until he was gone. That night, long after the sun sank behind the horizon, she sat alone in her quarters, uniform jacket folded on her bunk, patch of Resolute glinting in the lamplight. She stared at it for a long time. Then, quietly, she whispered to the empty room, I need to learn who they were. The rain had slowed to a soft, steady rhythm, the kind that made the world outside feel a lifetime away. Inside the VFW post, the air was thick with memory, old uniforms on hooks, photographs yellowed at the corners, the faint scent of gun oil and stale tobacco hanging like ghosts. Jonah Jack Ridley sat alone at the back, his coffee cooling beside a folded newspaper. The world outside had moved on, but inside these four walls, time still saluted the men who never made it home. The door creaked open. Elena Vasquez stepped in, no uniform now, just jeans and a weathered jacket. The look in her eyes had changed. It wasn't rank or duty that brought her here. It was something quieter, heavier, Jack looked up and smiled. The kind of smile that came from seeing something familiar, something forgiven. "Lieutenant," he said softly, "you clean up well." She almost laughed. "It's just Elena now," she replied. Placing a book on the table, Underwater Warriors, A History. Its pages were lined with sticky notes, corners folded, ink smudged from use. "I've been reading about your unit," she said. "I had to see you. One more time." Jack nodded, motioning to the chair. "Then sit. They always tell stories better over bad coffee." She handed him a pen. "Would you sign it?" He opened to the chapter barely mentioning Operation Black Trident. A single paragraph. A single sentence. That was all history had given them. He clicked the pen, hesitated, then wrote, "For Elena, so you'll remember the sailors. Not just the ships, J.R." Her voice cracked. "Sir," I wanted to say. He raised a hand, gently. "You already did. Back on the pier." His eyes softened. "Regulations make you efficient. Compassion makes you worthy. You'll learn the balance." For a moment, neither spoke. The jukebox in the corner clicked faintly, as if remembering a song it couldn't quite play. Rain pattered on the glass, soft, persistent, alive. Elena looked at the old patch on his sleeve, that silver trident cutting through the storm, and whispered, "You still think about them, don't you?" Jack's gaze drifted toward the window, where the reflection of a younger man seemed to look back. "Every day," he said, "because remembrance is the only kind of immortality we get." The shot lingered on the two of them, the veteran and the soldier. Two eras bound by a single lesson. Fade out. A single sonar ping echoed in darkness. If this story already pulled you in, you're just getting started. Before the next chapter begins, I want to know, where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city or country in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning of Operation Black Trident.